Have you ever walked through a dead mall? Those massive shopping centers that used to be packed with people, now sitting empty with maybe one or two stores barely hanging on. There's something deeply unsettling about them. All that space designed for crowds, for life, for activity, now just silence and echoes. I'm a night security guard. I've worked at Westfield Plaza Mall for 3 years. And I'm here to tell you that some abandoned places aren't as empty as they seem. This is my true personal experience, shared for entertainment and discussion purposes. What I'm about to tell you happened over the course of 6 months, from October 2023 to March 2024. And it's the reason I'm looking for a new job. If you've ever worked security, or spent time in abandoned buildings, you know that feeling. That sense that you're not alone. Keep watching. You'll understand why I can't go back there. My name is Marcus. I'm 31, and I've been working private security for almost 8 years. Retail security, office buildings, construction sites, I've done it all. The pay isn't great, but it's steady work, and night shifts mean I can take college classes during the day. Westfield Plaza Mall is in the suburbs outside of Detroit. It opened in 1985, during the big mall boom. In its heyday, it had over 150 stores, a massive food court, a movie theater, even an indoor mini-golf course. I remember coming here as a kid with my mom, getting soft pretzels from the food court, playing in the arcade. But like so many American malls, Westfield couldn't compete with online shopping. Stores started closing in the early 2010s. By 2020, the anchor department stores were gone. The food court shut down in 2021. The movie theater closed in 2022. When I started working there in October 2023, the mall was down to 7 stores. 7 stores in a building designed for over 150. A sneaker store, a vape shop, 2 phone repair kiosks, a nail salon, a discount clothing store, and 1 sad little coffee shop that somehow kept hanging on. The rest? Empty storefronts with gated shutters. Hallways with no lights. Sections of the building that had been completely closed off. The food court was particularly eerie, a massive 2-story space with about 40 restaurant stations, all abandoned. Tables and chairs still set up like people might come sit down any minute. Menu boards still advertising combos that hadn't been available in 3 years. My job was simple: patrol the building from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., 5 nights a week. Make sure no one broke in. Make sure the few remaining stores were secure. Check the bathrooms for homeless people who might be trying to sleep there. Walk the perimeter every hour. The first month was boring. Incredibly boring. I'd walk my routes, check my stations, spend most of my time in the security office watching old movies on my laptop. The building was quiet except for the hum of the HVAC system and the occasional creak of settling concrete. The second month, November, was when I started noticing things. Small things at first. Chairs in the food court that I could swear had been in different positions from one patrol to the next. Doors I'd locked that would be unlocked later. Lights flickering in sections that should have been powered down. I reported it to my supervisor. He said the building was old, things shift, I was probably just tired. Valid points. Night shifts mess with your head. But then came December. December 3rd, 2023. I was doing my 2 a.m. patrol through the North Wing, the deadest section of the mall. This wing had been closed to the public since 2022. No stores operating, minimal lighting, just a long corridor of shuttered storefronts leading to what used to be the main entrance. I was walking past the old GameStop, empty shelves still visible through the grating, when I heard it. Music. Faint, distant, but unmistakable. That tinny, cheerful mall music that used to play over the speakers. Except the mall music system had been shut off years ago. Budget cuts. I stopped walking. Listened. The music was coming from further down the corridor, toward the food court entrance. I followed the sound, my flashlight cutting through the darkness. As I got closer to the food court, the music got louder. And I could make out the song, Walking on Sunshine, by Katrina and the Waves. A song I remembered hearing in this exact mall as a kid. The food court entrance was through a wide archway with "Food Court" still written above it in faded letters. I stepped through. The music was louder here, echoing off the high ceilings. But there was no visible source. No speakers active. No radios. Just music playing from nowhere. I shined my flashlight across the space. 40 dark restaurant stations. Hundreds of empty tables and chairs. And then my light caught something that made my breath stop. At one of the tables, in the center of the food court, was a tray. A food tray. With what looked like a meal on it. Burger, fries, a drink cup. I walked closer, my hand instinctively moving to the pepper spray on my belt. The tray was real. The food looked fresh. Not like it had been sitting there for hours. Steam was rising from the fries. I spun around, flashlight sweeping the food court. Hello? Security. If someone's in here, you need to identify yourself. No response. Just the music, still playing. I called my supervisor. He thought I was messing with him. Someone probably left it before closing, he said. The mall had closed at 9 p.m., 5 hours ago. These fries were hot. I took a photo of the tray with my phone. Then I left the food court, shutting and locking the access door behind me. When I came back through on my 5 a.m. patrol, the tray was gone. The table was empty. Like it had never been there. After that night, I started noticing more things. Always in or around the food court. December 10th. Footsteps. I could hear someone walking on the second floor of the food court, in the seating area up there. But when I went to investigate, no one. The dust on the floor was undisturbed. December 15th. Voices. Distant conversation, like people chatting while eating. But when I entered the food court, silence. Empty tables. December 22nd. Laughter. Children's laughter echoing through the space. I searched every inch of both floors. Nothing. I started avoiding the food court. I'd do my patrols through the rest of the mall, but I'd skip that section. I told myself it was fine. Nothing dangerous had happened. Just weird sounds and that one tray incident. My supervisor noticed I wasn't checking that section. He warned me that if I didn't complete my full patrol route, I'd be written up. So I forced myself to go back. January 8, 2024. 1:30 a.m. I walked into the food court for the first time in 2 weeks. The music was playing again. But this time, it wasn't just one song. It was a whole loop of classic 90s hits. Songs I definitely remembered from childhood mall trips. And the food court wasn't empty. I don't mean there were people, but the space felt occupied. Tables that should have been pushed together were spread out, like they'd been set up for customers. Some of the menu boards at the restaurant stations were lit up, glowing with offers and prices. I could smell food. French fries, pizza, cinnamon rolls. The smells of the food court from 20 years ago. I stood there, frozen, as the sounds built around me. Not just music now, but ambient noise. The hum of conversation. The clatter of trays. The beeping of cash registers. The food court was coming alive around me, but I couldn't see anyone. Just sounds and smells and lights where there should be darkness. And then, at the far end of the food court, in front of what used to be a Chinese food place, I saw her. A woman. Middle-aged, wearing clothes from the 90s, mom jeans, a floral blouse. She was facing away from me, standing perfectly still in front of the dark counter. "Ma'am?" I called out. "The mall is closed. You can't be in here." She didn't move. Didn't turn around. I walked closer, my flashlight beam shaking slightly. "Ma'am, I need you to dash." She turned. And where her face should have been, there was nothing. Not a blur, not a shadow. Just absence. Like reality had failed to render her features. I ran. I'm not proud of it, but I ran. Out of the food court, through the corridors, back to my security office. I locked the door and sat there, shaking until sunrise. When I came back to work the next night, I told myself it had been a hallucination. Lack of sleep, stress, my mind playing tricks. But it kept happening. January 15th. 2 people in the food court. Both faceless. Both standing motionless at different restaurant stations. January 23rd. A child. Small, maybe 7 or 8. Sitting at a table, hands positioned like they were eating, but no food there. No face. January 30th. Dozens of them. The food court was filled with faceless figures. Standing, sitting, moving in slow, purposeful ways. all silent except for the ambient noise of a busy food court that wasn't really there. I started documenting it, taking photos, videos, but the camera never captured them. In the footage, the food court was always empty. Just me, alone, my flashlight cutting through darkness. But I could see them. Every night. More of them. February 14th, 2024. Valentine's Day. I was dreading my shift. The past 2 weeks had been intense. Every time I entered the food court, there were more of them. More faceless people, acting out the motions of eating, shopping, living. And they'd started noticing me. They would turn when I entered. Their blank, empty faces would orient toward me. They didn't approach, didn't speak, but they watched. Or whatever the equivalent of watching is when you have no eyes. That night, as I approached the food court for my 1 a.m. patrol, I could hear something different. Not the usual mall music and ambient noise. This was singing. A group of voices, harmonizing. My Girl by The Temptations was playing, and the faceless figures were singing along. I could hear their voices, dozens of them, all singing together. I stopped at the entrance. Part of me wanted to turn around, radio for help, leave. But another part of me was angry. This was my job. My building. I wasn't going to let some impossible hallucination or ghost or whatever this was scare me away. I walked in. The singing continued. The food court was packed, every table occupied, every restaurant station had figures standing at the counter. It looked exactly how I remembered it from childhood. Alive. Happy. I walked to the center of the space and shouted, "What do you want? Why are you here?" The singing stopped. Every faceless head turned to look at me. The silence was absolute. And then one of them stood up. A tall figure, could have been a man, wearing a maintenance uniform. He walked toward me, his movements stiff and unnatural. He stopped about 10 feet away. And when he spoke, his voice came from everywhere and nowhere at once. "We never left." "What do you mean?" My voice was shaking. This was our place. We belonged here. When they closed the mall, when they shut it down, they shut us down too. We were part of this place. We are this place. Are you ghosts? We're memories. Echoes. Impressions left in the walls and floors by thousands of people over decades. We're every mall trip, every family outing, every first date, every group of teenagers hanging out. We're the mall. And the mall is dying. But we're not ready to die. Other figures stood up, moving closer. Not threatening but surrounding me. "We need to stay alive," another voice said, this one sounding like a young woman. "We need someone to remember us. To keep the mall alive. We want you to stay," a child's voice added. "Stay here. Work here. Keep us company. Keep us real." I realized what they were asking. They wanted me to become part of this. To join them in this eternal, frozen recreation of what the mall used to be. "I can't do that," I said. "I have a life. I have Dash. Everyone who worked here, who came here, they've moved on. They don't think about Westfield Plaza anymore. But you're here every night. You still walk these halls. You could stay. You could be with us." The figures were closer now, forming a circle around me. I could feel a pressure in the air, like reality was being pulled in different directions. The smells of food court was overwhelming. The music was deafening. "You belong here," multiple voices said in unison. "You remember. You understand. Stay." I thought about my mom, bringing me here as a kid. The arcade where I played my first video game. The bookstore where I bought my first comic. The food court where I sat with friends, feeling infinite and invincible the way only teenagers can. I did remember. These were good memories. But they were just memories. And memories are supposed to fade, to make room for new ones. "No," I said firmly. "I don't belong here. Neither do you. The mall is closed. It's over. You need to let go." The pressure in the air intensified. The figures moved closer. For the first time, I felt genuine fear. Not just unease or creepiness, but real terror that they wouldn't let me leave. I pulled out my phone and did something that felt ridiculous but was the only thing I could think of. I started recording a video. My name is Marcus Williams. I work security at Westfield Plaza Mall. It's February 14th, 2024, 1:23 a.m. If anyone finds this, the mall is haunted. There are things here. They don't want to let go. They dash. The figures rushed me. Not violently, but suddenly they were all around me, their blank faces inches from mine. The mall sounds were deafening music, voices, echoes layered over echoes. I ran. Pushed through them, they felt like cold air, like pushing through a fog, and ran for the exit. The figures didn't chase me, but I could hear them calling out. Come back. Stay with us. Remember us. Don't forget. I made it to my office, grabbed my stuff, and left. I drove straight to my supervisor's house at 2 a.m. and told him everything. He thought I'd had a breakdown. He suggested I take some time off. I never went back to that building. I quit my job at Westfield Plaza the next day. Told them it was a family emergency. They didn't fight it, apparently. I wasn't the first guard to quit suddenly. I did some research. Over the past 5 years, Westfield Plaza had gone through 11 security guards. Most lasted a few months. A few made it to 6 months like I did. None stayed longer than a year. I found online forums where former employees talked about the mall. Weird experiences, mostly dismissed as jokes or lies. But reading between the lines, I could see it. The food court was mentioned again and again. Voices. Music. Feelings of being watched. One post from a former janitor in 2019 said, "The food court doesn't want to be empty. It remembers what it used to be, and it's trying to bring it back." I looked into the mall's history more deeply. In its 38 years of operation, 3 people had died there. One heart attack in the food court in 1994. One elderly woman who fell down the food court stairs in 2003. And in 2008, a mall employee, a custodian, who had a stroke while working alone in the food court at night. Maybe those deaths anchored something. Maybe all the energy and emotion of thousands of people over decades created something. I don't know. I'm not a paranormal expert. What I do know is that Westfield Plaza is scheduled for demolition in June 2024. The city finally approved it. The building will be torn down and replaced with a mixed-use development, apartments, small shops, a park. I wonder what will happen to the echoes. The memories. The faceless figures who don't want to let go. Will they fade when the building comes down? Or will they haunt whatever gets built on that land? I drive past the mall sometimes. Even from the highway, you can see it, this massive, dark building with just a few lights on in the corner where the last handful of stores are hanging on. I always feel a pull. Part of me wants to go back, to see if they're still there, to see if they've changed. But I don't. I know that if I went back, they'd try again. They'd ask me to stay. And I'm afraid that one day, I might say yes. That's my story. That's why I can't work security at abandoned malls anymore. That's why I take day shifts now, only in occupied buildings with plenty of people around. Dead malls are more than empty buildings. They're monuments to a version of America that doesn't exist anymore. And maybe, in some of them, that version is trying to survive. To persist. To pull people back into a past that was never as perfect as we remember it being. If you've ever worked at or visited an abandoned mall and felt something wrong, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. I can't be the only one who's experienced this. Thank you for listening. If you found this story compelling, please like this video and subscribe. I share true paranormal experiences every Sunday. And if you ever take a security job at a dead mall, pay attention to the food court. If you hear music that shouldn't be playing, or smell food that isn't there, or see people who don't have faces, leave. Just leave. Some jobs aren't worth the paycheck. Stay safe out there. And remember, not everything that's empty is really empty.